help me out, elementary principals. Yeah. Gross motor, fine motor, yeah.
So, okay, are these kids special needs kids?
Yeah, they're all IEP students that require,
They're
through their individual education plan,
education
they
plan,
require service time
Okay.
as part of that plan to assist them in meeting the goals.
Okay.
Yep.
And that you did say was mandated. We currently don't have a we don't have a therapist?
We do, we need to add to support.
Okay.
When the caseload is too large.
Okay.
We need more support.
All right, my last question is, this is more of a process question. You're gonna have to help me out if I don't have this right. Was there a meeting or something last night to discuss teacher salaries?
Meeting last night?
Somewhere.
Last night was Sunday.
All right,
I don't know, I wasn't at
be
it.
gentle. Was there some recent meeting that we discussed, I thought I read it somewhere, where we discussed teacher salaries last week or something, or we approved them, or help me out if I could be misinformed.
Stipends? Is it
Okay, that might be it.
stipend?
When was that held and what's that about?
That was.
I mean, I know what
there's
stipends
been
are.
a couple of them. We've, as part of the teacher contract, which we negotiated back in the fall
Mhm.
with the certified staffing, we culled that out to work on it separately, so we could come up with a more inclusive stipend package, and that's the work that was done.
Okay, so it's already been approved, right? Oh, it's not
The
approved.
stipend
I'm
piece
just
has
more
not
of a
been approved.
process question, like, do
Yeah.
those things get approved before the budget gets approved? Don't you have to wait till the budget gets approved to do that, or
Well,
no?
if anything, that's not gonna have any impact on the overall budget.
Well, you've budgeted for the stipends though,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
so,
So, I mean, it's, the way that it factored out, there isn't,
no?
it's minimal, yeah.
Okay, thank you. You really did a nice job on this book. It was very comprehensive, and
And just
appreciate your effort.
To get back to your question on magnet school.
Yes.
So for this year, assuming the state reimburses us at the amount that they're supposed to, the cost to us is about $16,000. Last year, the cost to us was about $21,000. They reimburse based on the number of students. So this
Okay.
year, we have a few more students. So again, assuming that rate stays the same, it's typically $1,300 per student. We'll get a little bit more this
Okay.
year, because the cost will stay the same because we're doing the same run. It's just more students on it.
So you're keeping an eye on that in
Yes.
case that funding does not come back to us, right?
Yes.
All right, great. All right, that's all I have. Thank you so much.
Okay. You, ready to go?
I hope so.
Let's go.
Okay, I'm looking at the different schools, and under Object Code 111 for the teachers, Flanders had a reduction of $235,000, and Niantic Center had an increase of $258,000.
Yep.
What's that about?
5 teachers dropping off of Flanders because the enrollment is dropping, increase of teachers over at Niantic Center because the enrollment through redistricting is significantly increasing. So you have a shift in staff.
So the teachers from Flanders, can they be shifted to Niantic?
That's what they're doing. Yeah, that's what we're
Yeah.
doing, exactly. Yep.
Okay, Object Code 112.
Object Code 112.
Middle school had an increase of almost $21,000. All the others, with the exception of the high school, which was a decrease, ran between 7 and 11,000. Why did the jump be about twice as much in the middle school as the others?
I'm going to double check, but on the, I believe there's step increases included in that line are secretaries and custodians. So there were a few new secretaries at the high school, so they're going to start at a lower step. And there are, and a lot of the secretaries at the high school, I think, are already, other than the couple that are new, are at the top step, whereas the custodians and the secretaries at the middle school will get step increases in addition to the regular general wage increase.
Okay.
So I will double check that, but
Well,
I'm fairly certain.
I'm looking
that's
at
what it is.
custodians, and they're in Object Code 122.
No.
No?
122 is part-time certified, non-certified staff, so.
That's different?
So 112 are our full-time custodians and our full-time secretaries.
Okay.
And that 122 is part-time staff. So if we have substitute custodians that if a custodian is out for more than 4 days, or if there's multiple people out at the same time, then we will get a substitute custodian. So that's what's in that part-time, non-certified staff line. So it's substitute custodians. We don't really have substitutes for secretaries, so that's.
Can you tell me in each school how many secretaries are in each school? Do you know that?
I can count them.
Yeah, off the top of my head, she can update. You have 10, I believe, at the high school, the middle school, 5, roughly, and then 2 at each of the elementary schools.
2 each,
2 each at the elementaries.
middle school?
Middle school's the
You
only
said
one
5?
I've got to just double check. Yeah, we just want to make sure, because you've got an account person, you've got,
Yeah.
and we should be counting her as well.
Now, are those numbers stable?
Yes, as of right now.
There's been no additions in the last couple of years?
I'm sorry? No, we've reduced. We have some at central
Reduced?
office too. That's where a majority of them, at central office, we've reduced over the last couple of years. I believe 2 positions. Middle school has 6, by the way, John.
Okay, on Object Code 129, which is teaching assistants, with one exception, which is the middle school, we've all gone up quite a bit. 19,000, 24, 21, 30.
So there, some of the salaries this year were charged to grants, but we can't charge as much to some of the grants that we have, so that's what accounts for the change in the TAs.
So these are all like increase in wages, like payroll? No,
Not increases, so we have the same number of teaching assistants, based on the grants that we get and the, what we can use the grants for, the federal grant dollars. I wasn't able to allocate as much to the federal grants for, teaching assistants, so our operating budget needs to, absorb some of that.
okay. Object Code 121, substitute certified, which are temporaries when a teacher's on, coming into school.
So which page are you on?
Oh,
3,
yep.
3.
Page 3.
Right, those are our substitutes.
So that's $48,000 for temporaries when teachers didn't show up.
Correct.
You remember what it was last year?
Pardon me?
Do you remember what it was last year?
I can look it up for you.
Long-term subs.
And there's also
Wonderful.
included long-term
Yeah.
subs in there too,
Yeah,
that's right.
We've got long-term subs in there as well.
Right,
We anticipate we've got a number of teachers that are expecting, so we've got some long-term subs we have to put in
Yeah.
place for next year as well. So that's some of that.
Okay. Now, on a few of these different object codes, like, I don't know, the 129, which is teaching assistants, 127, different aids for lunch, monitor aids for lunch and so forth. Then 126, instructional assistants, which is for the classrooms. Can these people in those codes, if they're needed in another code, go and work and help out, or not?
I'm not fine doing
Say,
courses.
say you have in the classroom, you have an instructional assistant to the
Yeah.
teacher,
Yep,
and for some reason, you don't have any for that particular class or that particular day. Can somebody from 129, which is classified as a teaching assistant, go help out?
well, I generally would say no, because then they're stepping away from an IEP student that they might be working with, which is gonna leave that child now and put us, in fault, to go work with another
Okay.
student, so.
Aren't you asking if one student's absent, can this teacher be
No.
reassigned? Is that what you're asking?
Well, that's part of it, yeah.
If the student's absent, yeah,
Yeah.
but oftentimes what you have too is, you might have a teaching assistant or an IA, an instructional assistant that, 2 or 3 students who have an IEP are in the same classroom. that instructional assistant might be assisting those 3 students in the same room. So if one is absent, they're there to assist the other 2. That happens as well.
Okay. In the capital improvement plan, I pulled out a couple of sheets from last year, and a lot of the capital improvements were put into this coming year, 2019 to 2020. Now, I didn't see anything in the budget that reflected any of those capital improvements.
Yeah, the only thing that should be in there is the acquisition.
So the only thing from the capital improvement plan is the acquisition plan, which I believe is
Yeah,
$44,000,
the
which is in our
technology, yeah.
lease payment. So I'm not sure if you're looking at last year's, we have updated our capital, so everything
Okay.
that was in last year's is not all there. And I believe in speaking with Anna, and Anna can certainly elaborate, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but when we talked, for example, the paving projects will be part of the town paving projects as well, and I believe she bonds that. The sidewalk repairs, I think she consolidates with the town's sidewalk repairs, and I believe that's bonded, so you wouldn't see that in our budget. Does that
This,
make sense?
if there's something on the plan, it's not budgeted, and it comes up in current year, and you have to pay for it, where does the money come from? You follow what I'm trying to say?
So you mean if there's an emergency and it's not budgeted and we have an
Right.
issue
Say,
where we need to repair something,
See if I can find-
like a boiler?
Yeah, boiler was now $95,000.
So I think we'd have to make a determination and either decide if we, in evaluating our budget, if we have enough, whether we can freeze funds like we've had to do this year.
Yeah.
We are in a freeze because our special education costs are well above what we anticipated, so we've issued a freeze. So we'd have to determine that and possibly put other projects that aren't as imperative to the side and reallocate those funds and use it for the boiler.
Are there any projects other than that $44,000 you think might come up this year?
I don't think, given that we're in March, I don't anticipate any, but I can't say that, a
Yeah.
boiler won't go or, that sort of thing. We don't anticipate any. We've done a lot of work too. We've started to have quarterly meetings with Joe Bergaw, and he's been great to work with. We have that 10-year plan. We've talked a lot about that. So that's been very helpful as well.
Okay, another question. What percent of the budget, because I can't really find it, does the athletic programs cost?
So you say all athletic programs,
Yeah.
so you're talking high school and middle school is what
Yeah.
you're talking. Yeah, we'd have to.
Just percentage-wise?
I'd have to get back to you on that only because it includes stipends, the stipends for coaches and things like that. I'm assuming you want that included as
Right.
well, in addition to equipment and so on. So I'd have to calculate that, and I could certainly get back to you on that.
That's a good question.
Yeah, are there any pay-for-play at the moment?
Not currently.
Any
No.
plans?
It's something that could be looked at in the future, definitely, pending where.
What programs now are being paid for? Like, I know probably football, baseball, track, what else?
All of the, if you take the high school, all of the sports programs are
Which is,
part of the
that's what I'm
stipend.
asking. Those three, swimming?
Yeah, swimming, tennis,
Tennis,
lacrosse,
lacrosse,
cross-country, track, crew,
Yeah.
soccer. Yep, all of the.
How are the
sports.
costs going up from year to year in the athletic programs? Has it been stable? I know everything
There's
goes up.
been, well, for our coaches, there's been no increases
Yeah.
whatsoever. They've had the same stipend payout. So really, I can't think of
programs-
any incurred costs that have been higher as it
What
comes to sports.
programs are there that exist but you don't pay for? That say the parents pay for, the kids pay for
Yeah,
something?
yeah, hockey, fencing, I believe. There was a freshman lacrosse. I think we actually put that in the budget, though. for this year.
Things like marching band and all that's student paid, right?
Some, but that's part of our non supplemental schedule. So, yeah, there's not many, Jen, when it comes to sports as of right now.
So the cost for the total of the athletic programs, would you say increases every year by what %?
I wouldn't say by much at all, because we're not paying, really the biggest cost would be our, the number of coaches and
Yeah.
giving them increases, but, CIAC, we pay, for officials and everything else, but, we work a lot of that off of the revenue you generate from patrons coming to games and so forth, so.
So transportation might be the big
Yeah,
driver.
transportation costs,
Yeah.
those are good, yep.
There's
Yeah.
that, so we have 109,000, I believe, budgeted for transportation for athletics, and I
sports.
think last year it was 105, so it's not a huge increase.
It's not big.
Done?
We're good?
Yep, that's it.
Okay. My turn to suck the oxygen out of the room. All right. So I think a lot of my questions, I think almost all my questions have been touched on. I'm just gonna burn through them real quick here. As I've said in the past, and as I'll say this year, it seems like administrative costs grow faster than anything else, right? As administrative salaries grew 2.72%, where total salaries grew at 1.29%. So it seems disproportionate. It seems like in last year, I know that student populations went down, but its administrative fees continue to go up. And that's more of a soapbox thing than asking a question, because it just, to me, it just feels like, I mean, one of the things that the governor is trying to do is consolidate school districts, because administrative fees is just, it's not putting the money in actually educating the kids. So that's something I think it'd be nice if we could do something to decrease or at least keep that growth proportional with the rest of the growth. Safety, I know you said you wanted 116.6K, which is a 58% increase. I don't know that all the new safety officers have to also be officers. I would think that you can have some greeter quality people that are mixed in with the safety trained personnel, if you will, so that when you do have one guy leave the door, there's another guy, gal that's there that's able to kind of manage. I think that's, as you look at the things that are impacting your budget the most, the security, the safety, it just feels like there's a sharper pencil you can put in there to not use everybody high pay. I know you keep going back to like, well, we got the most expensive guys down in Old Lyme, so we're going to use them. I know you use Waterford as a reference a lot. Waterford's not a standard town, right? They got they got income coming out to go. They have flexibility in their budget that we don't.
Got a higher mill rate than us too.
For a couple of reasons, Waterford just it's.
Yeah, I guess they're our neighbor. I mean, I
It's
try
may-
and
it's
share
maybe an
services with them
outlier,
because they're the
yeah.
closest.
It may
So-
be an outlier when you do your statistics. It might not be the right place to look. You might want to look at a couple of other towns. On page 3, there's an item called other employee benefits that grew 20%. Did you talk about what other employee benefits are?
Sorry, what page?
It's page 3 in the book. It wasn't, it was like 10 grand, I think, if I remember right.
10.5.
Yeah. It's not a huge growth, but it's 20%,
What is it?
and it's a nebulous category.
Sure, that is a contractual obligation, so in our administrator's contract, there's a contribution toward a 403B, and I believe that increased by $500 from this year to
So that's a
next year.
retirement benefit.
Yes.
All right, thank you. And then other professional tech, you talked about tech growth. And again, I'm gonna tell you that a blue ribbon college, high school, everything I read, East Lyme is in the top 10% of the state. I know you feel like you're falling behind everybody else. I think the state thinks you're doing awesome. I think we think you're doing awesome. So to feel like you're falling behind, I don't know that that's,
I mean, I'll say we are falling behind when it comes to technology. Absolutely.
okay. Repairs you talked about, bus services I think we talked about, the money moving from ground supplies we talked about, textbooks, we didn't come to a conclusion why the textbooks increased 26%.
He said it's not mostly textbooks. it's
Oh, that's right,
software.
it's the software, yeah, we did, that's right.
I did remember that one.
Okay. So beyond that, I think, like I said, I'm over here again talking about that the cuts all seem to be to teachers and buses. It doesn't seem to be cuts to administrative.
One admin position.
Work, yes, there's one admin, there's a bunch of teachers, there's 2 buses, and it just doesn't feel proportionate, but I don't know the total number of the ratio of teachers versus all BOE employees. So if the ratio is skewed that far, that there's that many more administrative people than there are educators, then I guess that's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Again, I keep coming back to this whole security thing, because it just feels like we went from here, and last year we took a quantum leap, and now we're trying to grow the security budget almost as much as we did last year. And it seems like 2 years in a row, it's a significant growth compared to where we've been for a lot of years. The world's tougher than it was when I was a kid, but it's not tougher than it was last year. It feels like there might be a smarter way to do that. And again, technology is again another thing that just feels like doesn't feel like we're falling behind. And you live it, you see it, you know industry standards. I do mean to question whether or not we're really falling behind, or we're just not competing with the rich kids next door.
No.
So I would think that if we compare our technology to the Montvilles or to the schools that aren't Waterford, to New London, to other towns near us that don't necessarily have the budget that Waterford has.
They're not in our DURG, right?
No, they're not, no. Looked across our DURG, I mean, you got, most districts nowadays have one-to-ones. They have, enough devices in classrooms, so when a kid walks into a school, they're given a laptop and they use it. We don't have that. We're far from that. I mean, our infrastructure won't support that even right now. So, and that's holding back our teachers.
But we still got the blue ribbon.
Yeah, we do, because we've got great offerings, we've got great teachers, we've got great supportive parents as well.
So I think at the end we're educating our kids. I think we're doing a really good job at educating our kids, I guess is my point. And then the only other soapbox thing I wanted to say was, when I hear about attracting kids to the neighborhood, I'm gonna do the same math I've done in the past. $16,487 a year for 12 years. It costs just shy of $200,000 to educate a kid. If your taxes are $3,000 a year, it takes 66 years to pay for one kid. So people moving into town, getting 12 years of education, and then leaving, that's a bad deal. 2 kids takes 132 years to pay for. So if you move to town with 2 kids and you get 12 years of education, that's expensive. So trying to say that we're trying to attract more kids to town so that we can pay to educate them, I don't think is the right dynamics. Beyond that, I think in future it would be nice if we did, not this year, but in future years, if we could try to get the athletic costs and all the extracurriculars a little more transparent, so we can look at trends and things like that. I think that might help the board understand where we're going.
Can I add one comment on the athletic? How much money's in the turf field account?
20 of us
Plus
who added 25.
29,000.
That's pathetic.
Okay. So, with that amount of oxygen spent, did we have any more questions or comments from the board?
I just have 2 follow-up questions
I
based
thought you
upon,
might.
based upon what you were just talking about. Well, one involves John's comments about the capital improvement plan. So the plan that appears in your booklet that was handed out to us is dated June 11th of 2018.
Which book are you talking about, the state of the district,
Yes,
which is given
so,
last year?
yes,
Yeah, end of
so
last year.
you have a more current version of this 10-year plan, is what you were saying. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, we've already mapped out what our CIP items are for next year. We worked
Okay.
down on that.
So that would be just a handy thing for us to have generally through the budget
They're
season.
gonna have their capital plan
through us. Yeah, because I did, yes, I did notice that was missing in our budget booklets. Okay, so that's fine. Right. And so just to be clear, with the exception of the 44,000 that we've mentioned, this is all town side then, on that capital plan, is what you're basically saying?
No, not in our operating
Not-
budget. The capital plan includes the Board of Ed.
Yes.
We presented about that.
Right, but for example, the version I was using had a, $1,899,355 figure for let's see, if I'm doing this correctly, 2019 and 2020. So,
It's 214,867. That includes the 44,000. That may actually change because we may or may not be
Okay.
getting
So-
so
Right.
there's a truck in there for 50,000 that we
Sure.
may or may not need.
That's fine.
So,
we just need some updated figures on
Sure.
that. Okay, is what I'm saying, from whatever source, either from
Forthcoming.
Mrs. Johnson's office or yours. Because that, if I'm given this set of information, I'm looking at a budget, that's what I'm looking at. So right now, I don't have the right figures. Okay, done with that.
That's the truck we talked about last week.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, on security and safety, just a question. Yearly, is there a state mandated security review? Do I have that correct, or every other year, something like that?
Whole emergency operations plan.
Right,
submit,
right.
to the,
So, other than perhaps your coastal connections program component to the security safety item, was any of this added, 116,577, any of that come from some of that, from your discussions or your presentation to the state? So,
Yeah, there's some dollars in it. Locks, at the high school, we've been trying to upgrade all of our, replace our locks.
yeah, without getting into specifics that
Yeah,
might be
there's some, yeah,
confidential,
pertinent stuff. Yeah.
that's fine. But in other words, some of this might be generated from having been reviewed by the state, is that correct?
Yep, feedback.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, and that's my last question for the night. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
So salary increases for administrators, superintendent, assistant superintendent, what's that looking like this year?
Current year or next year?
In the next budget?
We haven't, the Board of Ed decides. I bring Mariana's, I bring.
So what's in this budget for that?
We put in a general 2%, 2.5% increase.
0.72.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions or comments?
Sure, I have one more.
Please.
So I heard you say the students don't have laptops.
I mean, there are some. There are many carts that we have. We do not have enough for every child. One teacher might be using a cart, which leaves their colleague over here without one for a period of time. And when they're trying to teach the same subject, it's problematic.
Do the teachers have iPads?
Teachers have one-to-one devices. They have laptops, basically. We started getting all of our teachers equipped because we had to make sure that they knew how to utilize and integrate technology before equipping students.
Okay, can you put a number on how many FTEs there are to manage things like attendance?
So it depends on the bill. The secretary basically does attendance, but what we've incorporated is recently a robocall, system too. Where in the past, the secretary was get the attendance list of absent kids, would call every household via phone. So we're working to automate things as well. So it's has been a secretary's job.
So there are 2 administrative assistants at the high school that handle that currently, but that can't be
No.
full-time.
No. There's one attendance secretary. Mrs. Kelly, you still here?
There's a Miss Herlock and a Miss
We have one
Lapidus.
attendance secretary. Right.
So I see 2 names here, Miss Herlock and Miss Lapidus.
Right, Ms. Furlock handles discipline, and Ms. Lapidus, she does the attendance one.
Okay, but the attendance is not a full-time thing.
Actually, it's more complex than you think when we have late arrival, early dismissal, so we have kids coming in at 7:30, we have kids coming at 9, we have kids leaving at 12:30, we also have kids being dismissed. as well as coming at different times.
So is there any software that could be acquired to automate that attendance at all in terms of, I know there's a company out there called Blackbaud. If kids get a fob and they just swipe it to come in or out, and then you can get a screen that indicates, by classroom if you desire, like who's there and who isn't. Is there any work being done to automate that type of attendance?
Not in that sense yet, where we would use fobs for, students to monitor and attendance. I mean, if a student leaves and doesn't fob out, how would we, I guess there'd be a lot of things a lot of questions need to be answered with that, need to be looked at. But we haven't gone there quite yet.
So there is a full-time position at the high school just to handle attendance?
And all the, as Mr. Susi just mentioned, yeah, all the different components of, when students are coming and going.
And so there would be another full-time equivalent at each of the other schools, probably?
No.
No?
No. Take an elementary, you've got 2 secretaries. One generally is doing a lot of the special education components. The other one is running everything in the office. One piece of that is attendance. But, you're dealing with 300 students versus almost, 1,100.
Right. Okay.
So the questions that we asked you guys, I thought there were 3 maybe. When can we expect to hear back on those? I think one of them was trends for personnel.
I have 32.
Yeah, I think it's more than 3
Oh, I'm
questions.
so glad you're here and took notes. Okay.
Well, which we'll go through, because a lot of them I think we answered some. But we'll look at it.
Okay,
We'll look
great.
at it.
Tim, thanks for recording those.
Yeah.
It's easy to lose them, and we don't want to do that. What's a reasonable time frame to hear back from you?
Next week?
You're scheduled them to come back?
Yeah,
Well,
Your schedule?
we could write them up. We could.
Presentation?
Yeah, we should, some of them are straight, really straight.
Yeah, I mean, we
I
could.
think if you publish the responses to them, then we can decide whether or not we need a follow-on meeting. I think it should be, we got answers now, and if there's follow-on questions, we can do it through the mail. Unless y'all feel like you need somebody here, and then we've got an extra night of deliberation in the schedule someplace we can add them.
I'm okay with an email, and if there's a question, we'll follow up.
No problem.
Any other questions? Thank you all for your help, your details, your work, and everything that goes with it.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
Next item of business, item E, public discussion. Public discussion is for anybody that has anything that they'd like to say about the meeting tonight or future comments. Please. Name and address, please.
Anthony Gresh, 51 Grouse Circle. I'm going to try to articulate something that's semi-coherent, but my brain shuts down after 8. Thank you for your service. This is a fantastic dynamic to watch. A lot of Board of Education here. I have a feeling that this comment might actually be better directed at a Board of Education meeting, but it has budgetary implications. But I'm glad you're all here, too, or most of you anyway. So I'm going to keep this short. I think our most important asset in the public school system, which I'm a big fan, I should say I'm a parent of 2 kids, one in middle school, one currently at Flanders Elementary School. So I'm invested. And for the record, I'm willing to pay more taxes. I believe public education is important and it requires support on the part of a population that believes it. So, and I believe in it. But the most important asset, hands down, is our teachers. Our teachers are the ones who make the difference. This is a Herculean thing you guys just did. Budgets are massive. This is complicated. I get it. And I'm just going to talk about a very small piece that might seem like small potatoes, but I want to try to make a case for why it's important. Caught words in the very recent past that there was going to be a reduction in the hours for the arts and the music special teachers at Flanders Elementary. And I have a stake in that because my son went through it, my daughter's in it right now, and it's one of the reasons why we moved from Waterford to East Lyme was for this school district. I like it. It's holistic, and it's got one of the strongest arts and music programs around. Subjective, I know, but it's really solid. I'm disappointed to hear, if my facts are correct, that there will be a reduction, possibly as much as a full day in these special teachers' schedules. Sort of glossed over in this presentation. It's buried in that book, but there are real consequences to this. This is a full day. This is a major salary reduction. And we're not losing people, but I think shuffling people is a little bit cavalier. Because what we are doing here is, the superintendent's mentioned we want to keep our people. This is a retention issue. If we cut a full day of salary from folks who don't make a lot of money already and do amazing work, I don't know if you ever heard 23rd graders blowing recorders. It takes a lot of resolve to stick with it, but also to do it well. It takes a lot of creativity and imagination to be an arts teacher and to inspire students to engage in that art. I realize rebalancing, redistricting, I totally get that, but if we really do want to try to think creative, your words, then maybe we need to figure out how to keep these people in the budget full-time as they're already budgeted for. Short-term reactionary budgeting, when it comes to human capital, our greatest asset, has long-term consequences. Financial consequences, because it costs money to replace people who are disenchanted and want to go elsewhere because we can no longer support them. But we do expect a mean 25% enrollment increase in an elementary school over the next 10 years. If we lose really talented people right now, but we need them in the very immediate future, I'd say that we've made a mistake. That's short-term reactionary budgeting. Personally, I don't want to get on a big soapbox. I'm going to wrap up in 1 minute. I think we're doing great with security. I don't think this is a competition among school districts. When we say that we're willing to cut our special teachers, we're saying art and music is not as important. And I know they're getting the same number of instructional hours, but we might lose the human capital. I would argue, as a social scientist, I believe in math, I believe in literacy, but that art and music is extremely important to making full citizens of our democracy. And maybe that will address these real world problems or our perceptions of why we think we're living in a harsher world. I don't think we are. So retention is a real thing. It also upsets our community culture. And that's not just the individuals, but it's the teachers, the collaborations in the schools, the collaborations amongst one another, but it's also with the parents as well. We're invested in this. So I would encourage you to be creative. Figure out how to retain these people. I realize there's a bottom line here, but what's our priority? Are we going to operate from fear, or are we going to support something that we're really already amazing at? We're going to affect that. That's going to affect our standing in one way or another. Thank you.
Thank you. Public discussion. Anybody else that would like to speak to the board? Sir.
Mike Schultz, Lovers Lane, East Lyme. I have a couple handouts I'd like to provide that I'm going to speak to, and I would appreciate your indulgence to give me as much time as I may consume in order to go over this. I hope that it won't take more than 5-10 minutes max, maybe less. No, I have a limited. I spent $40 just getting these printed up. I think that. No, I give each of you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
I have one for you, for your record.
I just watch that cord right there.
Thank you.
You have one?
Thanks, Mike.
All right. I spent numerous weeks, or I should say probably numerous months, going through, reading all the contracts, buying the contracts so I could sit down and actually study them. And this is not both for the town, but for also for the Board of Education. I did that for my own knowledge, what I'm presenting has absolutely nothing to do with not respecting all of you individuals and the work that you do. I wanted to understand some of the comparisons of salaries between the town and the Board of Education, and what some of these stipends mean that are being, now I'm hearing something about stipends for the teachers. And I'm just going to go over quickly here. The very front sheet, the top half of the first page involves the Board of Education. And it's all public knowledge, off the contracts. I have shortened or put things to the nearest number as best I could. And it's from, the information is extracted, as I said, from the contracts. And what I'm going to point out here is that in 2018 and 2019, the salary for our superintendent was $191,686, and on top of that is an $11,000 stipend. So that means the contribution, his compensation increase for 2018, 2019 is $8,578. The assistant superintendents, I'm not going to go over any more details there other than to say that the compensation is $8,505. The finance director is $6,000. The administrators, at a 1.75% increase, is approximately $2,400. Certified teachers, those that are at that reach step 12, between step 11 and step 12, becomes a $5,200 compensation. Certified teachers that are at step 12 or over, they're only getting a 0.85% increase. It's about $700. And I'm going to stop with that, but I wanted to point out, at the town level, I'm going to look at a park maintainer and compare that to a Board of Education groundskeeper. A Board of Education groundskeeper is getting a $4,500 salary increase. A park maintainer in the town is getting $1,400. And this is based on hourly computations. Please feel free to calculate it on your own and show me where I'm wrong at any time. I'd appreciate it. And the next thing I wanted to bring to your attention, it goes on and on with all the salaries for all the town positions.
This is what you asked for, did you think?
And I also put in information here for the firefighters and for the police department to give comparisons. And I would like to, lastly, direct your attention to the third page from the back. The East Lyme Board of Education teachers. It's a 2019-2020 salary schedule. And I want to go right to the middle, if you will, where it says a BA plus 30 or a master's for 2019-2020 FTEs, and then a master's plus 30 and a 6-year certificate. What this is saying is that we have, right now, we have 270 certified teachers. Of that number, 145 are at or above step 12 on the salary schedule, or 54%. Their general wage increase will be 0.85%, which roughly runs you between $700 and $800 this year. That's not a big increase. It's very fair, but it's certainly not a large increase. However, there's 106 of that 207 are certified teachers that have obtained an administrative degree, which is a master's plus 30 or a 6-year certificate, and this is referred to as an administrative degree. And with that, those individuals are qualified for administrative job up to the assistant superintendent level. And that's an extra cost to the town, the taxpayers. It totals out to $582,000 by going from a master's degree, which is required to teach, and going to the administrative contract or administrative degree,